So welcome everybody. Here we are, placed in shelter with your host, Ryan Catarozoli. I got a great episode for you today. Just a reminder, we're going to have 3 more episodes, and then our last episode, number 50, will be airing on Tuesday. Today, I've got a really cool episode for you, but first we need a quarantine update, right? Well, nothing too crazy going on over here. However, there's one thing that we've all been feeling that no one said before, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. With this whole COVID-19 thing going on and really affecting people's lives, I've had some close friends now, originally business acquaintances and have turned personal friends over the years. And some of them have lost jobs. I know they'll land okay and they'll find a good spot for them. But on behalf of myself, them, and everybody else, F COVID-19. I just felt I needed to say that. So moving forward, we have a really cool episode today. We've got a great guest on. We're actually going to have Kevin Wilson, who is the CEO of Esrock Partners, on. So you can see his video here. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so he can come up nice and big. And Kevin, like we do with all of our guests, thank you very much for attending. And can you give us a brief introduction for those on the show that may not know who you are?
Hey Ryan, as mentioned, Kevin Wilson with Esrock Partners. We are a food marketing agency out of Chicago. We're in the suburb of Burr Ridge, so if you think a little south of Oak Brook, for those of you that may have called on McDonald's at some point or something like that, these facilities about 1 year ago to the day, almost exactly, so happy anniversary to the building. And we've been doing work with Hatco as one of their marketing partners for a number of years, I think 10 years running at this point. So happy to be there. We represent people from all over the food industry. So we work with manufacturers like McCain Foods and Grease and Delight. And so food manufacturers, we work with equipment manufacturers like Hatco. We work with Dot Foods as a client. So we kind of touch brokers, distributors, dealers, food manufacturers, food equipment manufacturers, ingredient suppliers like Newlyweds Foods, and all points in between. And we're doing everything from marketing and data insights to media placement to creative to marketing on automation and content development. So all the terminology that's changed in the last few years. And if you've seen us at, whether that's at Hatco or at trade shows, we're typically almost wearing our red shoes as I am today. I can't really stretch that far, but there's always red kicks on somewhere, and that's kind of us and our brand. And I also run a blog called What's New in Food, so feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. Some stuff that happens there, try to bring unique data and insights and that type of thing. So just happy to be a resource for the food industry.
Awesome. Yeah, the show's been great. I know the other day you had was it International or National Donut Day?
National Donut Day, yeah.
And that was great. And I heard it was quite the kick amongst your followers. So
yes, yeah. So, we get quite a bit of following. People, the amazing part about the COVID thing has been how much engagement there is virtually, so folks like yourself doing things for the first time. We've seen our numbers spike dramatically, especially when we're putting out data or updates, and we've tried to share some specific things. So once every couple of weeks, we'll do a segment share out. So K-12, C&U, C-Store, we're doing a lot of work in that space right now. So just letting people know what's happening in those segments.
That's awesome. So I know a lot of you were on for an earlier interview and you heard me reference Media Day. So Hatco has a Media Day, and Kevin and his team are a big part of putting that together with our advertising team. And I have to say, when I had to first start interviewing people, watching you be the moderator and the presenter kind of at our Media Day, you did a fantastic job. So I tried to channel my inner Kevin Wilson when I started doing my interviews as well.
The world would be a better place if everyone channeled their inner Kevin Wilson. That's just my point of view, but I'm going to go with it for now.
That's awesome. So looking at it from the marketing standpoint and all the different ways you're helping your partners, what do you see happening in the marketplace right now?
It's really interesting out there that everything is reopening at different paces. And when I say everything, there's a lot of regionalization. So some states are way ahead of, so in Illinois, we've been open for 2 weeks for outside dining, and then we had protests hit and everything closed again. So we've had about 4 uninterrupted days of outside dining, even allowed in the food space. And obviously some things have changed at the retail grocery side as well. And then as you look inside the food service industry itself, obviously casual dining still trying to figure out how to open back up. QSRs have done a pretty good job through this, but even their models are changing. But we're seeing things like, we've got one client that's very big in the movie theater business in terms of serving food, and they're still completely shuttered till at least July nationally is what we're hearing from most of the large chains. And so it's kind of like you have to know the information changes every day, but what channel, what segment are you going for in the food business, and where are they at this moment? And if they're shut down, how can we move resources somewhere else to kind of get there? So that's been a big one. As things open back up, I think everybody's really cognizant of the consumer concerns that are out there. When you go back to your favorite restaurant for the first time, you're probably not looking to order something new or different, right? You're not looking for the latest flavor. You want to go back to that dish that you've always loved, whether that's a great burger or a great steak or a great pasta dish. And so it's less about new flavors and more about comfort and safety and security and seeing my favorite wait person that I've known forever, my favorite bartender and something like that. So I just think that as people come back in, the need for consumers and operators are really focused around safety, around an adjustment period of getting people back in the door to try to build consumer confidence. And then I think really it's about staffing and communication. And we're seeing folks up and down the restaurant industry communicating in completely different ways. If you look at Chick-fil-A and their business, right, they've got very open signage on their hand washing stations, not so that their employees can find that hand washing station, but so that the consumer sees that their employees have to wash their hands every 30 minutes. And so they're over communicating their process on that. And McDonald's published, and it's been pulled back a little bit, but there was a story in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times picked it up, a 59-page manifesto on how to bring people back into your restaurant, and that even when you're wiping down the tables, that you should do it cheerfully. And so there's been a lot of really interesting information from these food service leaders about how they're doing, what they're doing, and things like that. So we see a lot of that. I do think the two big things coming out of this is that operator models will continue to evolve. So those that started delivery during this, they're not going to not do delivery in the future because they think that that's going to be a part of their business for curbside dining. And others I've heard are talking about shrinking their dining room. Like, do we really need as big a dining room as we're going forward? So I think that's been a part of it. And then technology and apps are just going to continue to go forward with mobile ordering and things like that are going to be huge as part of the future.
Awesome. So, one of the things you mentioned that we've heard several times here on the show from previous guests, and I'm sure in other presentations, consumer confidence, consumer confidence, consumer confidence. What do you see? What's that challenge? What are some of the things you see us there trying to overcome?
Yeah, so when it comes to consumer confidence, I think the biggest thing is, it varies by where you're at, it's, do your customers feel quote unquote safe? And even when they say they're safe, so think about that first time you sit back down in a restaurant booth and the person next to you starts sneezing about 5 times over. What is your reaction to that? And what does the reaction from that staff need to be? Do they need to come out and clean tables? Do they need to ask you if you want to move? And so operationally, it's a massive challenge. But I think for most people, we don't feel like, so I'm Chicago based, and there's a whole lot of people that are out and about, and I've stood in line at Home Depot along with 100 other people trying to get in to do my projects. I don't know that everybody feels like they're overly threatened, but I think that when you are confined to a space at that point, you're going to be asking yourself, well, I'm socially distanced, but that person does look like there's something wrong with them. So I think it's just making sure that everybody really communicates and understands where you're at. And I think that once people start to go and dine in, it will be, they'll get back to it and they'll tell somebody else, and that somebody else will tell somebody else. But I think it's going to come in droves. Some people are ready to go today, and I've heard other people say, I'm going to wait a few months and just see how it works out.
Sure. My kids were watching Monsters, Inc. Earlier this morning, and that's what I picture. We'll be in the restaurant eating, and someone will start to sneeze, and all of a sudden the hazmat suits will bust out of the wall. 2019, and they'll package them up and take them away quickly, and everyone will just, oh, okay, normal, everyday business.
Yeah, so just a really interesting thought about how that could evolve as we're coming in. Or you never thought about having to get your temperature taken before you walk into a restaurant. And so that's all part of that. And when the person in front of you, I'll just share a funny anecdote, which is I got my hair cut for the first time a week ago on Friday. And they called me right before I came in. We're supposed to come in at 6:30 at night. And they said, hey, the person before you canceled. And I thought, that's weird that the person before me canceled because everybody's been waiting. So when I got in there, I was talking to him. I talked to my hairdresser guy and I said, hey, the person before me canceled. What did you think about that? And he said, oh, that person didn't cancel. They had 102 fever.
Oh.
And so then I was like, I touched the door. After that person, did I wash my hands? So that's the same thing that you're going to see in restaurants. If the people ahead of you get rejected and you are standing there social distancing behind them, how does that make you feel? So that's when we talk about consumer confidence. I think we all feel pretty confident until you're standing there and you go, wait, if they were sick and I was standing here, how did that impact me?
Yeah, sure. Those are all good points you don't even think of. I know my wife and I went to the dentist not that long ago, and sure enough, had to get the temperature before we could go in. And, we did it because we had to. The whole time it was a little awkward, and kind of inside you were going, please don't have a temperature. Please don't have a temperature. So the other big question that's going to come up is, what's the implication for sales? And, obviously in all the data you've collected, where can we be better suited?
Yeah, so I want to hit one thing above that, and I'm going to come down, and that is to say,
okay.
There's a communications gap that's out there in terms of selling at this moment. So I thought about NAFM a little bit, right? And you are 18 months right now removed from the last NAFM, but you are 15 months out from the next NAFM. So just think about, traditionally you have a show every 24 months, but right now you've got this gap out, and that's happening across the school show closed down and the National Restaurant Association slowed. So a lot of people have this pent up demand for being able to talk face to face to a salesperson, typically where they've gotten their information, that's been taken away from them. So there's a communication gap with customers, because even magazines, Restaurant Business, which I'm sure a lot of you guys get or receive, said we're not going to publish an actual magazine for the rest of the year. We're going to go down to digital only. So it's just driving this communication gap. So I think the implication for salespeople, and I thought about this a lot, is just that process, not sales themselves. A salesperson still has to be a salesperson, but the process is going to change. And what I mean by that, manufacturers are now saying to me, hey, maybe we don't need as many feet on the street. Maybe we can do more virtual meetings. And if you are doing virtual meetings, what's the implication for a virtual meeting? Or if you're doing a virtual trade show. So yesterday, FER hosted FER Next, right? And a virtual trade show. And you could go in and you could chat with a salesperson live. How many of us have been trained to chat with people in a virtual room versus face-to-face? And do you have a digital tool that you can kick to them something immediately when they're talking about it? And if you think about you're working an actual trade show booth, you might be able to walk over and bring in a specialist, or walk over and bring in a piece of POS and say, this is exactly what you need. When you're in a virtual chat room talking to somebody, what you need to be really prepared for that. So I think that's a part of it. I think it's less about, again, hey, this piece of equipment's going to be really adaptable and flexible, and it's going to be more along the lines of it's going to be safe, it's going to be reduced labor, it's going to do all these things for you. So I think what was the most important thing before is going to be less important, and food safety is going to be a huge part of that. Labor saving, dependability is going to be a huge part of that. So I just think the messaging is going to evolve. And then I think it's really just understanding what a new operational pattern looks like. So I know Culver's announced they've never done a carryout program, but they're about to roll out their carryout program. Wendy's is doubling down on that breakfast program. So whether it's an independent operator or a chain, or if you look at schools, Ryan and I were talking about that. Massachusetts announced yesterday that they were only going to allow 10 students in a classroom, and that they're going to feed in the classroom. Well, what's the implication for transporting food, warming food, cooling food, all the other parts and pieces you would need to go with it?
Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, that was a great segue you brought up earlier with the FER show, because Randy's going to be on tomorrow to talk about that and all the virtual tools. So I know there's a lot of people here that were in it, but there's a lot of people that weren't. And some of the stuff there is really, really cool, cutting edge stuff. For the sake of time, the show usually goes, 15 to 20 minutes here. I need one more question from you, and that's the prediction. What do you see from your data and your experience with your customers?
Yeah, so I think the challenge that we're hearing from people, and this is probably the most painful truth, is a lot of people are saying, here's where we were in 2019. It may take to the end of 2021 for us to get back to that same level, only in that some industries, stadiums are completely closed, right? If you had any business going into that, you're done right now, and there's no sign of that easing up. So I think there's a long road ahead. I think it's going to be highly competitive. So meaning if you take your foot off the gas right now, you might lose share because everybody's going to be fighting over a smaller space temporarily. And so you've got to be really aggressive out there. So I would just say, know which segments you're trying to go out there, and then understand you're going to have to be really aggressive to just hold share, and then focus less on these things that are going to be more ancillary, like movie theaters and stadiums that you know you've got some time against. And I would also just say, make sure you've got the right story of products, service, value, and then corporate values. It's not just COVID. The last thing I'll say, if you look at what's happened post-COVID with the socio and cultural issues that are out there, that's going to be a part of the discussion too as you're getting back on these calls.
Sure. That is all great stuff. Thank you again for coming on. Really appreciate it. This is the part of the show where we want to kick it back to our audience and see if there are any questions here for Kevin. April's got one right off the bat. Hey, Kevin, what do you feel is the future of self-service, i.e. salad bars and buffets? If that goes away, converting to full service, do you think that will drive up meal prices due to labor costs?
Yeah, so I think self-service on both so I shop at Mariano's, and they've got their olive bar closed, and they've got their hot and cold bars closed. I think it's going to be a while, mostly because the rules from the FDA have not come down as to what a safety procedure is yet. And I know a lot of customers that play in that space are waiting to hear that, is what we hear. And I think a lot of consumers are going to be really, again, I know there's a sneeze guard there, but if somebody sneezes and you're walking past that, how confident do you feel that you can get that? I will say that eventually those will open back up because we've been trained forever to do those things, but I think that they're going to come along more slowly. I think this entire COVID thing is going to drive prices up because people are going to look for individually wrapped items. They are going to want their salads prepared versus going in. So I think we're going to see a spike in pricing regardless, but I think that salad bars and buffets are going to take a while, and that could take entire chains out. Like, Golden Corral, I don't know how they survive in the short term if they're trying to serve people, right? I mean, that's a great example of a different model.
Old Country Buffet, that was our go-to. High school baseball, I've said the story before, we'd go in and see how many plates of food we could eat. Any other questions coming in from our chat today? With that, if you have seen the show before, we're going to actually kick off our favorite portion, the whole reason everybody joins in every day, and that's to take a look at our memes for today. And I was feeling a little overweight, so that's what the memes are geared towards today. This one came in from Christine. Before quarantine and after quarantine, it's Little Debbie turned into Big Deborah. Here's one from Joe McAuliffe. No, you haven't gained that much weight during the quarantine. Come on, chin up. No, the other chin. And last but not least, another one from Joe. Can we uninstall 2020 and install it again? This version has a virus. So thank you again, Kevin. Great stuff as always. I really appreciate you coming on. Great topics today, great conversation.
Happy to be here. Good luck to everybody, and looking forward to kind of getting everything going again.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us again today. If you are catching this on YouTube, you have 3 more episodes. If you want to join us live, you can always use the link in the description below. If you are subscribed to Hatco, you can use the bell down in the corner. That will let you know every time one of our videos goes live. And as always, show us you're enjoying the content by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.